before last year, John Morant was in top 12 talks. He was right there knocking on the door. Even last year when he played, he was pretty great when he played. Yeah. He just unfortunately didn't play.
Came back from suspension, game winner.
Demon. Yeah,
Awesome.
He really was on demon timing. I guess watching it, Memphis changed their play style just to be prepared in case Ja misses games. Like you don't want to be too reliant, but at the same time you're enabling your star player. Also, he's not playing well. Like I don't want to just make it a whole they've changed the system, it's on them. He's also not playing well. You know, he's not like he's taking a couple bad shots at the rim. He hasn't been the same finisher as he was prior. He's been dealing with nagging injuries. The jumper has not improved like you wanted to improve. The mid-range is fine percentage-wise. He just doesn't take it enough. I think he should probably take it a lot more. Definitely needs to get a little bit more in the toolbox. But yeah, Josh having a bad year, and you can attribute it to him not playing well, the system, changing before his eyes, catering more towards Jaren Jackson. Because also Desmond Bane hasn't been
quietly
as
bad.
Consistent. Like, he's had his up and downs too. And you don't want to make a system that doesn't cater to two of your three best players. For it to cater to just one is kind of odd. But how can you really is that your stomach?
That was stomach.
I had to eat today.
How can you really? that
was bubbling.
How can you really argue it when they're number 2 in the West? But they've been number 2 in the West before.
Yeah.
I think it gets clunky when you're in the half court. Like, why are you running a bunch of ISOs and spot up for Ja? You want him in the pick and roll. You want him in pick and rolls with Brandon Clark because you see that's damn near an A+ play when you can throw a oop at the rim, or if Brandon Clark rolls, he has the nice little short floater. You want him in pick and rolls with Edie. You want him in pick and pops with Aldama. Like, you want him doing all these things. You want to maximize his passing. Like, he's one of the best passers in the game.
This year, is it tougher to be a Ja or Halliburton fan?
Oh, Halliburton. The Grizzlies are winning.
Do you think the Pacers are winning?
True,
too?
it's a good point.
I think Ja because you expect more.
I think so.
Okay.
Too.
I think Ja because Hallie's putting up 20 and 8.
He's still he's putting up kind of similar numbers to his average.
You're fine.
He's playing like a pure point guard.
Yeah, you're fine with it. But with Ja, you expecting 25, 26 a night, 8, 7, and he's not. He's giving you Hallie numbers right now.
But where I see it is in the West, he's still one of the most competitive teams. Sure. He's not playing to his standard. We understand that. The finishing hasn't been just overall, his total efficiency just hasn't been great. I think too many threes, selling for too many jump shots. We understand that he's definitely lacked in that regard. But the team is still playing some great team basketball, committing on both sides, offense and defense. And really where I want to give a lot of credit, I know this is really a Ja-centric topic, but I want to give credit to Jenkins for understanding, this is not the offense that we're used to running. John Morant's not that same player. Let's adjust. And I give a lot of flowers to Jaren Jackson. Every single time we talk about the Grizzlies, I always have to acknowledge how I challenged Jaren Jackson in this offseason, and he told me to shut up, and this has been his best season. So you give him a lot of credit because this is a lot of isolation basketball that we watched with the Grizzlies as definitely comparative to other seasons. And they're still being able to be productive and play winning basketball. End of the day, I think Ja inevitably will turn it around. This is definitely a down season for him. He just needs to adjust. Like Riv, what you're saying is spot on. Your game and where you thrive, let me not call you SGA, but you need to be that type of version. SGA is going, he's aggressive getting downhill. He settles for these mid-range jump shots, but they're high-efficient shots because, one, he's so incredible at making these tough shots, but he understands these are higher quality shots. Settling for jump shots, that gets into a slippery slope. You start to get lazy. You start to get too – passive's not the word, but again – understanding the moment of when to attack. I think Ja, we've seen him be so great in the past that I can understand being let down, but the Grizzlies have just been so great that Ja fans can at least hang their hats on. We're still one of the best teams.
Yeah, part of me wonders the fact that Ja Morant has been injured, the fact that he's had the off-the-court issues, that Taylor Jenkins and the Grizzlies, we need to change the offense. We can't be as reliant on Ja Morant as we have been in years past because they've had, you mentioned it, right? The pick and roll, more pick and roll centric offense. Ja Morant, just a more Ja Morant centric offense. A couple of years ago, this is a team that has had top 5 offenses, right? This is a team that has won a playoff series with Ja Morant averaging damn near 30 and doing what we're expecting him at this point of his career to be an all NBA level player. And they've had success doing that, but they've also had success in this version of the offense, right? Where Jaren Jackson's been really the number 1, the best player on this team, but you've had contributions from Scottie Pippen, you've had contributions from Jalen Wells, Santi Aldama, Luke Kennard is, leading the league in 3-point percentage right now. So a lot of the role players, a lot of the young guys, as well as Jaren Jackson, has all leveled up their game. While I agree with you, Riv, Ja's taken a step back. Bane has taken a step back. But both versions of the offense has worked, right? This offense right now is the second best offense for the Grizzlies in the last 20 years, from an offensive rating perspective on, taking out garbage time, cleaning the glass. So this offense has been working. I think they sit number 5 or number 4, 6, something like that right now amongst all NBA teams. So what they're doing is working. But it does make me think, if Ja didn't have these injuries, if he didn't have the off the field or off the court stuff, would they have made this switch to be like, all right, we're going to, it's not going to be as pick and roll heavy, but we're going to cut more. We're going to slash more. We're going to, just have open shots off the ball more that isn't as reliant on Ja Morant. And it brings up a bigger question, I think, because we've had the conversations before about what happens this offseason with Ja. Because a player of his caliber, he's not a jump shooter, right? Like, at least right now in this time, right? He's shooting 30-something%, I think 31% from 3, 34% from the corner, a bit better there, 42% from the mid-range. So if he's not a number 1, right, which he really hasn't been this season, right? Jaren's kind of been the primary offensive guy for this team. He can't really be a number 2, right? Just his skill set doesn't really give me like a number 2 vibe. Like, if you have a dominant wing, maybe that works more, or maybe a better three-point shooter.
You talking about trading Ja?
Well, I'm just wondering, if I'm the Grizzlies and I'm the front office, if you're not treating Ja like he's the number 1, how does he fit on this team? Like, how does he fit on a contending team if he is not the primary? He's obviously going to be the primary ball handler, but if he's not going to be the primary, guy that's getting downhill, primary initiator, right? Because I don't think his skill set works really as a number 2, right? Like, I think he has bits and pieces where you still see that Ja Morant where he's getting downhill. Like last night, he had fucking 14, 16 free throws, so he was still being aggressive. But if you're that bad of a jump shooter, how are you going to fit into other offenses or into this offense where it's kind of everything is working around you, but you as the focal point, or who once was the focal point, your role is different and it doesn't really fit what you want to do. So I think the Ja Morant trade rumors are real. Whether it's valid or not, I think it's a separate question, but it does make me wonder, like, what is his fit, right? Like, if he is not the primary higher usage guy, even though his usage this year is about the same as it has been in years past, but if you're not the primary guy, running pick and roll, getting downhill all the time and kicking out to open shooters, like, what do you really look like on this team? And listen, they're second in the West right now, right? Tied with Denver. I think a lot of us still expect there's a decent chance to get bounced in the first round if they match up with, like a Mavericks team or one of the teams in the bottom 7 seeded Timberwolves.
Clippers would give him a decent series too.
Yeah,
weirdly.
like there's a lot of teams that are in the play-in-ish area right now. They're playing some good basketball that would be a toss-up at the very least. So it does make me wonder, like, what happens to Ja Morant if this is the offense going forward.
Can I ask you though, does the playmaking kind of ease your mind a little bit?
It makes it better for sure, because he's such a great playmaker.
I think the oxymoron is that Ja Morant is clearly the best offensive player on the team. Even if the numbers might not show that, he is the best offensive player on the team. And the Grizzlies have been able to have great offensive output without him leaning into those superpowers that he does possess. I think this could be a good thing for Ja in the long run, taking him outside his comfort zone, forcing him, and instead of understanding these are your deficiencies, you can't shoot, we're just going to play around that, and hopefully they don't come up in certain matchups. They're forcing him to shoot the ball more and to be more proactive in improving that jump shot. Because now Ja Morant knows the number one thing in the offseason that he has to work on is jump shooting. And he's been had to work on that for a couple off seasons now. I just feel like in a small market like Memphis, you're not going to find a player as good as Ja Morant anywhere.
Probably
and
not.
if you trade him, you're not going to get a player back at equal value, especially this version of Ja Morant coming off a down season with issues off the court as well. I just feel like Memphis as a small market, Ja Morant might not fit the best, but he is what makes this go, and what he's made it go for a long time. And I think moving away from the pick and roll heavy offense is just a way to add a layer of unpredictability in the playoffs, because everybody guards pick and rolls every single night. But the fact that Memphis has ascended into a team that is able to cut, that is able to play off the flow and off the looks of the defense, it now gives you a different facet of your offense that you could tap into.
Can I ask, Riff? Go ahead.
No, I'm honestly not a fan of it. Because I am not the biggest fan of all 10 guys being able to put the ball on the floor and make a play.
But they have that.
No, I'm saying I agree, but like, you're enabling your best player. Like, I don't think you can, like, there's a world where you could have had both. There's a world where you could have cater to all three of your best players. There's a world where you could have maybe not cut his pick and rolls. Like you could cut it, but not drastically cut it.
So is there a world where this is what they look like in the regular season, but in the playoffs, the pick and roll numbers spike up?
I'd be surprised.
I find it hard. You just completely switch your game plan
Because they've
been
played
doing all year.
They've played a pick and roll heavy style of basketball for years now.
Yep.
Similar personnel. So all you're really changing is how much load you put on Ja in the regular season. So in the postseason, it's a little bit fresher and it's a different look. But I feel like having that full season to integrate this type of offensive system.
You're not gonna just go to the playoffs and take the ball out of Jaren's hand.
I'll say this: like John Morant last year, 47% frequency on pick and rolls last year. Well, 2 years ago when he was healthy, he had a 0.93 points per possession, which is good, but the marker for elite level pick and roll players, is 1 points per possession. This year, John Morant on those pick and rolls that he does have, 26.5% frequency, so that's almost a 20% dip. It is a 20% dip, 0.81 points per possession. So even on the pick and rolls that he has this year, he has not been great at them.
Yeah, I think
that's more of him.
He's in a slump. I just think offensively, scoring the basketball, he's in a strong slump. Now, the way that I want to talk about this is I think about that Denver pick and roll. There's no play more unstoppable than that Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic pick and roll. Now, that play was a lot more dangerous 2 seasons ago when they weren't running it as frequently because, of course, Jamal Murray was playing at a much higher level, much more consistent level. And, of course, Jokic was just able to beat you in so many different ways, and the offense was able to beat you in so many different ways when you had KCP, when you had Bruce Brown. But now we see them oversaturating the pick and rolls so constantly.
You've seen it more.
Exactly. And it's a lot easier, although still not easy. It's a lot easier when you see it more and more. Now, in this scenario where that could be the case, maybe that gives you a little bit of optimism if you're a Grizzlies fan. But when you hear the numbers, even regardless, it's not as if they're still good to great. He's dropped off, actually. And even though they've cut it in half, and who knows, if it would have been around the same, if it could raise, it could drop a little bit.
More inefficient
Correct.
possessions.
It's just you've done it less, but it's even more inefficient. That's where I would get a little worried. But for Ja and for the rest of the Grizzlies, the fact that Ja is struggling and we're still able to win basketball games, it just leaves me optimistic for when he inevitably does figure it out, because Ja's been too great for too many years. Now, this is the question that I wanted to pose. Is he starting to offensively scoring the basketball trend in the direction of a Russell Westbrook? And if that's the case, does that concern you as a Ja fan? I put that to everyone, not just Riv.
I don't know, because like going into last year, coming into this year, last year he lost a year because of his shoulder.
Yep.
Right. So you have all offseason to kind of work back to getting that shoulder right, and then you come into this year and you turn into a spot up shooter. So I don't think it's gonna happen like that's gonna happen in a complete whole year. Like it's gonna take time to do that.
I'm with you.
I just think with Ja, it's like Westbrook was different because he was a lot stronger. He was a lot more physical.
Definitely.
You know, he had the mid range in his game. I think Ja, his problem is knowing when to take the mid range, knowing when to take the jumper, like knowing when to not settle, when to be comfortable and go into the rack. You know, not always looking for the foul call, which they don't give him. Learn to just be more like in control. I don't know if I can see him trending in the Westbrook like offensive, because I can see them being similar tier type offensive players.
Yeah.
For me, it's just like, all right, you understand what your role is now. Your role is going to be, at some point, you're going to be a spot-up shooter. You're going to give the ball to Jaren. You're going to give the ball to Desmond. That's all fine and dandy.
Yep.
Now you have to go and you have to work on that a ton. But now, going into the playoffs, not many teams really switch up what they do. Like, especially a team like this young. Like, do you just now go from Ja not having the ball a ton to now in the playoffs he has the ball a ton and he's coming off a slump year? I don't know. Do you take the ball out of Jaren's hands? Do you put the ball in Desmond Bane's hand? Like, it's weird, because it's like there is a world where you could have made all this work for all three. Ja's been struggling. You haven't really made it easier for him to get out the slump. You're kind of just like, no, you got to go figure it out. Like, just go keep figuring it out. Go keep figuring it out. So it's I don't know. I think I can see it, though, for sure, because, like, they're similar play styles.
To the point that you made, Dels, I mean, after Luka got traded, nobody's untouchable. I think especially somebody like John Morant, who he's not as good as Luka, so he's definitely not untouchable if the right offer comes on the table that they can't pass up. But I just think right now maybe this is just their way of easing him in, because last year he missed basically all the last season due to suspension and with the injury, and maybe coming into this season putting so much on the shoulders of somebody who just missed an entire year wasn't the smartest thing to do. But we have to see, there's been some smoke around the Memphis situation with rumors circulating from executives.
The GM said they're not trading him.
Zach Kleiman did come out and he did make those comments and say that, he's untouchable. He's getting ahead of it now, and he's telling everybody that he's not going nowhere. I think that's what a good GM does, but we don't know what happens behind closed doors. We don't know if he is talking to people. He is disgruntled with John Morant. I feel like if we're the head of the Grizzlies right now, we're the GM, I feel like everybody's a little bit disgruntled with John Morant with all the off-court issues that have happened. I just think the difference between him and Russell Westbrook is that Russell Westbrook was relentless. And even though he didn't have that three-point shot, he had the mid-range shot, and he was an elite finisher at the basket and drove to the basket at an elite level with little to no spacing around him in OKC. But if Ja doesn't develop a jump shot, it's very much a player that is hard to win with overall.
I think that's why this version of the Memphis is, even though the numbers are good, and like I said, like second best offensive rating in the last 20 years for this team is impressive, but you're also highlighting the biggest weakness of your best player. Like, you're letting Ja go out there, and what we saw last night, he started fucking 0 for 9 from 3. He was like 1 for 14 at one point. This is your best player, right? Even though Jaren's having the best year, if you want to make the argument, that's fine. But we've seen, like Riv said a couple of years ago, this is a dude that was in top 12 talks, right? In talks to an all-NBA player. So the fact that you change the offense, for better or for worse, because it's working right now, but to change the offense while making what was your best player into kind of a weakness for your offense, right? Like, if he's a spot-up three-point shooter or a spot-up shooter in the playoffs, that's going to get schemed against, right? This is, I think, one of my bigger concerns, too, is they're 25-3, I believe, against teams under 500. And they're 13-17 against teams over 500.
Nobody in the West outside of like two
There
teams.
is only a couple teams.
There's 3 teams. It's OKC, it's us, and it's the Rockets. The only teams above 500 against teams 500.
They're the most stark. 25-3 to 13-7 is a pretty big jump, right?
No doubt.
Houston is pretty even. LA is pretty even. Denver's 500 against teams above 500.
Oh, nice.
OKC so they're pretty stark that they're beating up on the bad teams, which they should do, but we also just see that a lot of the times from like younger teams, energetic teams that can get on transition like they can, where in the regular season, they're just going to play harder than a lot of other teams. And then we get to the playoffs and it's like, all right, 7-game series. These coaches have time to sit down and game plan against each other. And it's a lot easier to pick out weaknesses against Memphis and Ja if he's just going to be sitting there trying to shoot threes.
And Memphis still plays with the most pace in the game.
Yeah.
They're going to get out and they're going to run. Obviously, when you have
It's
that
hard
guy
in the playoffs, though. You know what I mean?
That's what I wanted to say as well. In the playoffs, everything slows down.
But sometimes he doesn't even have the ball. Like,
yeah,
they
true.
push the pace with anybody.
But I
Bane.
love that, truthfully.
Well, I do too, to a degree, because I don't think everybody like certain offenses. I don't think everybody's good enough to be a
great
decision
transition.
maker. No,
Okay, I understand.
maker.
Fair.
So there'd be moments where in the transition you see if we're out there, and if if you're running a fast break and I'm out there in the corner, the best decision would not be to hit me in the 3-point line because you have Dell's drive.
I'm with
That's
you.
what I'm saying.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so it's like it really depends on who's out there running the break, but Memphis plays a style where they want everybody being able to be comfortable at attacking the rim, cutting, making a play.
To go off that, though, last season we saw the Pacers be one of the teams that played with the most pace, and their offense looked excellent in the playoffs. So maybe that's a little bit of optimism there, because we talked about it. When Tyrese Halliburton came off, they had another guy that can go out there and still keep that same level of tempo. So there's a part that if you are a Grizzlies supporter and you're seeing so many different guys can handle the ball, can take the ball up, can push the ball with such tempo, now it leaves a little bit of optimism in my heart that, again, this can translate. But in the playoffs, Jaren's been excellent. Yes, you want him to continue being this star. If you want to have a serious type of name in the playoffs, you need 12.
There are 4 play types that John Morant uses the most. Transition is number 1, 28.2% frequency. Pick and roll is 26.5%. Isolation 17.3%. Spot up is 14%. As opposed to 2 years ago, he had 3 play types that were over 10%. That was pick and rolls, transitions, and they were also isolations. This year, it's really been a balance, and you have spot ups and isolations that have been taking a bulk of that. But really, what this shows is that if John Morant is not doing his damage in transition, he is really not featured like that in the offense. 1 of every 4 possessions in the offense is a pick and roll. 1 of every 9 possessions is either an isolation or one of every 10 possessions, either isolation or a spot up shot. So he is really not being featured as much in the half court. And if you look at the Grizzlies' half court numbers in the past, that might be a good thing. They were never a great half court offense. Mm-hmm. This is their best half court offense that they've had in the Ja Morant era. And I think it's because it's utilizing all these players. And if Ja could become a good shooter, I think this has just rounded out his game more. And right now it looks so ugly because he's uncomfortable too. Yeah. I feel like this is a new play style for him.
If Ja can become a good 3-point shooter, all this shit goes out the window. But I also feel like, for years it's been not an issue, but like his biggest knock was just like, all right, like become a 3. Like we know you get down here. We know you can finish around the rim.
Probably their best 3-point shooting team
by far.
Like this is also their best.
Yeah, remember when they traded for Luke Kennard and that was a big deal.
3-point shooting team. So they have shooters at the gym. So like teams still wall up against Ja. So the benefit is like you still have the team still respect his game enough to where they got a guy guarding. They still got bigs watching, still bigs helping. So you got to just be able to work around it. So I'm really interested to see Memphis in the playoffs because I really want to see how they try to balance all this. Because like you also need Bane too. Like I don't want to forget him in this conversation. You need Desmond Bane.
I was gonna say though, to be fair to Bane, I think that the ascension of Jaren Jackson taking a crazy leap this year, plus of course Ja Morant and his usage of what it needs to be. I understand we wanted more from Bane, at least a little bit more consistency.
I just want consistency.
What I think still shooting the 3 ball at an efficient level, especially when the 3-point shooting in years past has been a huge question. 39% from 3 for Desmond Bane. I know 18 points per game when he was averaging when he was playing over 20 last year, but a lot of that was in due part to him not playing.
Wasn't he a 40% 3-point shooter?
Well, even let's say it's 40.
Early on, it's dropped off. Rookie year 43%. Second year, 43.6%. Third year, 40.8%. Last year, 38.1%. This year, 38.3%. He's taken 5.8 attempts. Last year was at 8.6.
That's what I'm saying. It's just the volume's down, and I think that is in due part to question. Was 8 a career high for him?
8 last year?
Yeah.
Yes.
Which makes sense because again,
last year was a bad team.
All around bad team, and you didn't have 12.
I want his volume up.
I agree with you. I think that he's a good enough offensive player, a good enough scorer of the basketball that he should have more volume, especially when Josh struggling. But I can understand
he was at 7 when they were good. Mm-hmm. So this is his outside his rookie year. This is his least amount of his year. When
this
he's
is just like really
so many people that they rely on.
For sure.
I think with Memphis's offense, like what it is really is just whoever is
that
open
night
has the matchup.
Yeah, that too.
But
that's really how
I think
play.
You need to condense it at some point, and they probably will in the playoffs, right? Like just because Boston's got fucking 6 dudes that can put the ball on the court, like it's still gonna be Jaylen Brown and Tatum and Derek White, right? Like you still know it's gonna be like those 3 guys, and KP will get his post up. So just because you have a lot of guys that can do it,
that's definitely a good formula for the regular season. It's a really good formula.
Because if Ja was going, bro, the Grizzlies are one of the scariest teams. How deep they are.
They're really deep.
That's why like the whole Jaren thing. It's amazing and it's good like that he's ascended, but like you need him to be your best player to have any chance.
You thought that he was the guy that would lag behind and catch up to Ja. Like he would always be chasing Ja. Never did you think that he would surpass him
all right.
this season. This season, he's been better. There's no way around it.
So you think Jaren surpassed Ja?
No.
This season, who's been better?
This year's been better.
All right, let's not get into.
We're semantics.
Okay, yes, okay. I'm not gonna get too crazy into it.
Nuts. Better though. He's been more consistent this year for sure.
Easy.
Like what's Jaren averaging? 22 a game?
20. Is it 22? Might be
23.
Yeah, 23.
I think Jaren has been amazing, but I don't think he's taken a leap to the point that I overly trust his offensive game in the postseason.
No, last year he was doing this. It's just now they're winning.
Yes.
Like his floater in the post up has been great. His handle has been there, so he can take you from right to left. He can take you in transition.
I don't know if trust anyone in the postseason individually as a team. You're like, okay, this should work.
Memphis, like I think Memphis has a lot of players that they're kind of question marks to see how consistent they're going to be. I think with Jaren, I think he's taken a fantastic leap. Fake, bless you. You're about
Thanks.
to
I burped.
He's taken a fantastic leap, but what hasn't taken a leap has been the rebounding. He's still a very poor
brother, I'll be honest
weird.
with you. It's not happening.
It's not. But that's why you go out there and you get Edie. Thank God Brandon Clark's back.
Why isn't he a good rebounder, bro?
Who?
Jaren. He's got other things to worry about.
Roaming a lot.
There's no reason why he shouldn't be.
But I get it, but
I'm trying to help. Listen.
He's got bigger fish to fry.
Listen, he's at 23 a game. So that's good. That's what you want.
Yeah. I know we're nitpicking a little bit, but it's also like you can be the deep and average like
for his
7
position,
rebounds this year.
That's like a massive responsibility.
Yeah.
Rebounding the ball. Yes.
Is it for fours?
I mean,
it's more for
Edey's-
five.
Especially
Edey's
for
getting some
him,
work
and
too,
I mean,
but-
sometimes he does have to play the 5. His last couple since February 3rd, 6 rebounds, 3 rebounds, 4 rebounds, 7, 6 rebounds,
there's no
6
reason he
rebounds,
should be under 7
3
rebounds in a game,
3
bro.
rebounds, 5 rebounds, 6 rebounds.
It's just never been his game, even when he was DPOY.
I know, but it's weird. You know
It
what I
is
mean?
weird.
Like, he's
I'm
such a
not
good
gonna say
defender.
you're
He's
wrong.
big. He's
Well, you know
physical.
he
like,
helps. If you help,
It's true.
can you really?
A lot of dudes help though. You don't get 10 rebounds a game.
Yeah, bro.
I mean, his defense minus rebounding
It's elite.
is
Yeah.
amazing.
He's probably gonna
Shit,
win.
man.
Yeah, it
was
just
too
I feel
much.
like with his lack of rebounding, it just limits the Grizzlies a little bit with the lineups that they could play because you don't really trust going
Small.
a 5 out lineup and him
Yeah.
playing a 5 if he can't crash the glass at an
Yeah.
elite level.